Early, put back for Angel Reese for
Two All-Star selections, a rebounding record, night after night of double-doubles. So why did the Chicago Sky move Angel Reese for what looks like almost nothing? Two late first-round picks and a swap. No star coming back, no clear replacement, just a deal that feels too quiet for a player this productive. And that's where the questions begin. Was it fit? Was it tension behind the scenes? Or is there something bigger happening inside the league that numbers alone can't explain? Now the Atlanta Dream step in, betting they just stole a future cornerstone. But while everyone debates the move,
season high 36, the last time these teams met. I know the Sky don't want to see that.
One team is watching in silence, the Indiana Fever, waiting for the chaos to settle and ready to strike when it does. Because in the WNBA, talent is obvious, but timing is everything. Let's get into it. The numbers that fooled everyone. Here's where the Angel Reese conversation always starts, and here's where most people get it wrong. Because when you pull up her stats on paper, your first instinct is to say, okay, this is a productive player. This is someone you build around. Two All-Star selections, the single-season rebounding record, double-doubles on a near-nightly basis. The surface-level numbers look solid. They look more than solid. They look like a franchise cornerstone, except here's the part nobody wants to talk about. Angel Reese arrived in Chicago in 2024 carrying real buzz.
In the 2024 WNBA draft, the Chicago Sky select Angel Reese.
A national championship from LSU, a social media following that made her feel like a generational talent before she played a single professional minute. And in her first season, the Sky went 13-27. Her second season, 10-34. Read that again. The team didn't improve. The team got worse. That's not a roster trending upward. That's a roster falling off a cliff while someone on it is collecting individual accolades. And this is the disconnect that Jeff Pagliuca in the front office eventually had to confront. You can't have a player leading your team in rebounds and double-doubles while the win column keeps shrinking.
Tries to get it inside. It's knocked away by Angel Reese. Billings comes down with it, and here's Gray to Young. Young in transition. A beautiful drop pass.
At some point, you have to ask what those numbers actually mean. And when you dig into them, you start finding cracks everywhere. Let's start with the shooting. Reese shot an abysmal 39% from the field in 2024. She nudged that up to around 42% in 2025, which still isn't good. But here's the number that should genuinely alarm you. Her three-point shooting sat near 18% both years. That's essentially zero. Defenses never had to respect her from the outside. They could sag off, pack the paint, and dare her to beat them from distance. And she couldn't. So every possession that ran through Angel Reese was a possession where the defense already knew exactly what was coming and could load up to stop it. But the rebounding record. People love to point to the rebounding record. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting, because a massive chunk of Reese's rebounds came off her own missed shots. Social media started calling them meows for a reason. She'd fire up a contested attempt near the basket, miss it, grab the ball herself, and the box score logged that as a rebound. Two possessions burned to get back to square one. That's not elite rebounding. That's inefficiency dressed up as production. She shot below 50% on shots from less than 5 feet away. From 5 to 9 feet, 13%. You read that right. You cannot have a post player miss half her own shots from under the basket.
Big with that steal and gives it over to Angel Reese, and suddenly there's a life.
And then claim the rebounds from those misses make her a star. That's just math eating itself. And on top of all of that, she wasn't creating shots for her teammates. No real passing out of the post, no pick and roll reads. Nothing that put other players in better positions. Chicago ran a huge chunk of their offense through a player who needed extra possessions just to generate the same output a more efficient player produces in one.
Chicago Sky.
Reese on the inside, powers with an up and under and goes off the glass.
And the wins didn't come. They never came. Chicago had losing seasons before Reese arrived, absolutely. But they didn't get better with her there. And that's the thing a front office watches. Not the all-star appearances, not the rebounding record. They watch the win column. and the win column got worse every single year she suited up for that team. The locker room unraveled now. If this were just about basketball, maybe you try to coach her up. Maybe you give it another season, bring in better shooters around her, adjust the system. But this stopped being about basketball a long time ago, because the incidents kept stacking up one after another until there was no charitable reading left. Go back to the very first game of the 2025 season. Indiana. Angel Reese publicly claimed she was a victim of discrimination during the game. That's a serious accusation. The kind of accusation that, if true, deserves a real investigation and real consequences. The league investigated it. They found no evidence to support it. Right out of the gate in Game 1, her default response to something uncomfortable was to make it bigger and louder instead of just putting her head down and playing basketball. And that set the tone for everything that followed. Then came the comments about Courtney Vandersloot, and this one is worth slowing down on because it tells you everything about how Reese viewed her own teammates. Vandersloot tore her ACL during the season. While she was recovering from that injury, while she was sitting at home rehabbing a torn knee, Reese went public with her thoughts on the roster's future. She didn't pull her punches. She told reporters in her own words that the team couldn't rely on Vandersloot to come back at her age, and that Chicago needed someone younger with experience who was willing to compete for a championship. Now pause on that. Courtney Vandersloot is a two-time WNBA champion.
Snooty the hesitation. Perfect. For Superwoman.
A five-time All-Star, two-time All-WNBA first team. She left the New York Liberty, a championship-caliber team, specifically to come help Chicago. And while she was injured, her own teammate went on the record in the press and essentially said, "We can't count on her. She's too old. We need to move on." That's not a private frustration that leaked out. Reese said that openly. And Vandersloot reportedly didn't appreciate it one bit. But it wasn't just Vandersloot. Camila Cardoso, Reese's own frontcourt partner, the player Chicago is now building their entire future around, reportedly walked out on Reese at some point during the season. Think about that. When your closest teammate on the floor, the person standing right next to you in the paint every night, decides she'd rather leave than deal with you, that's not a personality clash you can smooth over with a team dinner. That's a rupture. Then in September 2025, Reese told the Chicago Tribune that the team needed to get good players and great players and stop settling for what we did this year. On the surface, that sounds like someone demanding accountability. But she published those comments in a newspaper while she was still under contract with the same teammates she was publicly embarrassing. That's not leadership. That's burning the house down on your way out the door. The Sky suspended her for conduct detrimental to the team, and she picked up an automatic additional suspension for collecting her 8th technical foul of the season. After the suspension, Reese didn't return to the court for the final 3 games, with the team citing a back injury. And around that same time, footage surfaced of Reese twerking on a trip to Vegas. Make of that what you will. Suspensions like that don't come after one bad week. They come after a front office has spent months documenting a pattern, trying quieter fixes that didn't work, and finally running out of options that don't involve putting it on paper. And once that paper trail existed, the trade stopped being a question of whether. It became a question of when and for what. The truth the rivalry can't hide, and this is where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Because during that exact same stretch where Chicago was drowning in drama, losing games and managing suspensions, Caitlin Clark walked into Indiana and changed the entire trajectory of a franchise.
Caitlin Clark all night tonight.
Are you talking about my high school experience? Clark connects!
Clark broke 62 records in her rookie season alone. 62. The Indiana Fever went to the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hall, all of them played better basketball because Clark shared the floor with them. That's not an accident. Clark genuinely ran the offense in a way that created open looks for everyone around her. She made the players next to her measurably better. That's what a player who actually impacts winning looks like. And when Clark dealt with her own injury, her own pressure, her teammates spoke publicly about what it meant to play alongside her. Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, Sophie Cunningham, Kelsey Mitchell. None of those conversations sounded anything like what was leaking out of the Sky's locker room. There was no calling out of teammates, no discrimination claims the league couldn't substantiate, no suspensions, no walking out on each other, no twerking in Vegas while supposedly nursing a back injury. The Fever eliminated the Dream in the first round of the 2025 playoffs, and they did it while Clark was sidelined with a groin injury. Let that sink in. Indiana's roster had become good enough, had been elevated enough by Clark's system and presence, that they could win a playoff series without her on the floor. Meanwhile, Chicago finished with one of the worst records in the entire league, with their supposed star playing every available game. The manufactured rivalry between Reese and Clark was supposed to be this great storyline for the WNBA. Two young stars, two different styles, two franchise faces going at each other for years. But rivalries only work when both sides are actually winning.
Carter wants it in the post on Clark. Here's Kennedy Carter. The pull-up jumper is good.
And one side was winning, growing, and building something real while the other was losing, imploding, and generating headlines for all the wrong reasons. Inside Atlanta's high-risk experiment. So Atlanta picks up the phone, makes the trade, and their front office frames it like they just landed the missing piece. They called Reese a dynamic talent and a perfect fit for what they're building. And that sounds fantastic until you actually look at the roster they're putting on the floor. The Dream already have Brittany Griner and Bree Jones in the front court. Both of them are big. Both of them are slow in space. Both of them need the ball close to the basket to do their best work. Jones averaged 12.8 points and 7.7 rebounds in 2025 and finished as an all-star. She's not some bench filler you can slide out of the rotation. Now add Reese, who also needs the ball near the paint and shot 18% from three. You've now got three bigs who all want the same real estate on the floor at the same time. You can't play Griner, Jones, and Reese together in any meaningful stretch.
That's definitely Madeira's. Caitlin Clark gets the pass in the key and has...
Because you'd have three players crowding the exact same areas with no one pulling a defender out to the three-point line. Any halfway decent defense just packs the paint and dares Atlanta to beat them from distance. And Atlanta's new front court simply cannot do that. The spacing problem gets worse every time Reese shares the floor, and the Dream are going to spend a lot of time in half-court sets where their best option is a contested mid-range or a post-up that a packed defense already prepared for. Now here's the part that really stings. Alicia Gray finished fourth in MVP voting in 2025. Ryan Howard put up an all-star caliber season. Atlanta genuinely has two of the better guards in the league. But their offensive game depends on movement and spacing, on cutting lanes staying open, and defenders being pulled away from the paint. Reese compresses all of that. The fan reactions inside Atlanta's own fan base have been mixed for exactly this reason. The people who actually watch the Dream regularly understand that what made Gray and Howard so effective was the room they had to operate, and Reese's presence near the basket shrinks that room considerably. Then there's the culture question nobody in Atlanta's front office wants to answer directly. They watched Chicago spend 2 full seasons managing Reese's drama, a suspension, public call-outs of teammates in the press, a discrimination claim the league investigated and didn't substantiate, Cardoso reportedly walking out on her. And the Dream's bet is that a change of scenery fixes all of that. Teams have made that exact bet on difficult players for decades, and it almost never works, because the behavior doesn't live in the building, it travels with the person. Atlanta's locker room had been building something real with Gray and Howard as the core, and now it's absorbing a player whose previous team suspended her for conduct detrimental to the team. That's not a minor footnote. That's the last official thing Chicago put on paper about her before shipping her out. And here's the contract reality nobody's talking about yet. Reese is only going to be in Atlanta for 2 years, this season and next, only until her rookie contract expires. Atlanta's not going to offer her the max. They're not going to give her the supermax because you don't give the 4th or 5th best player on your team the supermax. So what exactly did Atlanta acquire here? A 2-year rental of a player with significant baggage, spacing problems, and a locker room history that might already be incompatible with the core they've built. Not a trade, a reset button. And this brings us to the question that won't go away no matter how many times you run the numbers. If Angel Reese is that good, why did Chicago take so little? 2 first-round picks that don't convey until 2027 and 2028.
Angel Reese to the Atlanta Dream. In return, Chicago gets 2 first-round draft picks.
Plus a second-round swap. That's what they accepted for a 2-time All-Star and the holder of the single-season rebounding record. And Jeff Pagluca gave the public answer about roster balance and rebuilding around Camila Cardoso. And sure, that's true as far as it goes. But it doesn't explain why Chicago didn't shop Reese harder, didn't sit back and wait for a better offer, didn't push for a proven player coming back the other way instead of a pair of picks that won't even land for 2 or 3 years. Teams that genuinely believe they're trading away a star player don't settle that fast, and they don't settle that cheap. Many people are saying the Sky got fleeced. Fine. Let's run with that for a second. Imagine you want to get rid of a player so badly that you're willing to get fleeced in the process. Imagine you're so desperate to rid your team of this person that you'll take whatever's on the table just to close the deal. That tells you more about the situation than any stat line ever could. If the rest of the league genuinely saw Reese as a player who made teams better, Chicago would have had multiple teams on the phone and held out for something closer to real market value. Atlanta's offer landed, Chicago accepted it fast, and no other team jumped in with a competing bid. That's not a front office getting outmaneuvered. That's a front office that got exactly what it wanted, which was out. Let's talk about what those picks actually are, because this matters. Atlanta just added Reese and thinks they're a contender now.
Chicago to Atlanta for 2 first-round picks. Reese has led the league in rebounds in each of her 2 seasons.
So if the Dream win more games, those 2027 and 2028 first-rounders fall somewhere in the 8 to 12 range, maybe lower. Late lottery territory with limited upside. Chicago took that deal anyway. And the speed tells you everything about what was really driving this trade. Teams don't accept below-market returns for star players unless getting the player off the roster fast matters more than squeezing out full value. Here's what Chicago actually bought with this trade: a clean locker room, a real fresh start around Cardoso, and the ability to stop spending front office energy managing a situation that had stopped being manageable a long time before the suspension made it official. The picks are almost beside the point. Cardoso is the player they actually believe in long-term. She's a legitimate center with a skill set that fits a modern offense. Good footwork, real touch around the basket, the kind of two-way potential that front offices genuinely get excited about. She's also the player who reportedly walked out on Reese during the season, so keeping both of them in the same building was never a real option anymore. You can't build around Cardoso while Reese is still in the locker room after everything that went down between them. Now Cardoso gets to find out what this team looks like when it's actually built around her. So when you strip away the headlines, the numbers, and the noise, what's left is a league quietly reshaping itself in real time. Chicago Sky made their decision, Atlanta Dream made their gamble, and Indiana Fever, they're watching the ripples, fully aware that the balance of power in this league is never as stable as it looks on paper. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Angel Reese becomes more than a player in a transaction. She becomes a question the league has to answer. Well, because in the WNBA, the truth rarely reveals itself in the moment of a trade. It reveals itself later, in the outcomes nobody can control. And as the next season approaches, one question lingers over everything. When the dust finally settles, did anyone actually win this move? Or did the real shift in power just begin? Did power just begin? Did power just begin?